and countless other fine articles found in the apparel and home furnishing departments of stores all over America. Actually, these buildings are not factories, but giant laboratories where skilled technicians follow specifications as high as those required in small experimental equipment. Within these walls work craftsmen to whom quality is a creed, with the most modern equipment obtainable. The interior of this DuPont cellulose acetate rayon plant reveals a maze of intricate, elaborate apparatus. A labyrinth of containers, mixers, and other machinery, linked by a network of pipes and valves. To the layman, a picturesque puzzle of queer-looking objects of every shape and size, but in expert hands, precision instruments that play major roles in the production of fine rayon yarns. Here, nothing is left to chance. Constant control of every process is maintained by accurate devices that check and record every operating factor. Continual checking and testing throughout every step of the way is one big factor in DuPont quality. These laboratories dot every building. Examine the product of each important process. Make sure that nothing passes on for further treatment until it measures up to the high standards set and rigidly maintained. Manufacture of viscose process rayon begins by steeping or soaking sheets of cellulose, the first step in changing them into the spinning solution as we saw in the laboratory. But while the principle is the same as with the glass beaker, here the operation of steeping is carried out with exacting precision. Just the right amount of cellulose is placed in each compartment of the specially designed steeping press. The sodium hydroxide solution is checked repeatedly to be sure it's just right, and the sheets are allowed to soften and soak for a definite predetermined length of time before an automatically operated hydraulic ram begins to squeeze out some of the liquid. Its pressure is carefully governed so that the sheets will weigh just so much more wet than when dry. Even the weather in this room, as in all other operations, is man-made, perfectly suited at all times to this particular process. Every factor that can affect the ultimate quality of the rayon is scientifically controlled to a fine degree. The soft, pulpy sheets pour through chutes to the floor below to be shredded into crumbs. These ingenious shredders gently crumble the sheets, pulling them apart, but not grinding them. This machine also uniformly distributes the liquid remaining in the cellulose so that its action is the same on every crumb. On the floor below, the crumbs are poured into steel cabinet-like containers. Here the crumbs are stored for aging under constant temperature. Every container bears an accurate record of its contents, so it may be individually checked and controlled. Accurate scientific analysis determines when the right degree of aging has been reached. At the correct stage, the crumbs are released from storage and passed on to the next treatment, which we remember is the addition of a liquid that changes them in color from white to orange. In actual manufacture, this process is carried out in huge rotating churns that are individually cooled to a precise temperature. The snow-white cellulose enters the barrel-like interior of the churn, which contains a pipe through which carbon bisulfite is fed. This liquid flows into the churn, rotating at a definite rate of speed, perfectly blending with the crumbs, which gradually darken in color. Here again, close control of every factor is absolutely necessary if our cellulose is to make fine rayon yarns. The speed of the machinery is closely regulated. Exact timing is highly important. For proper air conditioning, the air is completely changed 22 times every hour. When the process is finished, the cellulose xanthate, or orange-colored crumbs, are emptied from the churn. Notice how greatly they've increased in size and darkened in color, an indication that they are now ready to be converted into the spinning solution. In the laboratory, we carried out this step by dissolving the crumbs in a solution of water and dilute sodium hydroxide contained in a glass beaker. In the plant, the spinning solution is made in huge cylindrical mixing tanks in which exact proportions of the ingredients are accurately maintained. Each lot produced is thoroughly analyzed by control laboratories located right in the plant. All DuPont rayon yarn enjoys uniform, high quality, mainly because its quality is never taken for granted. It is constantly tested and proved throughout every step of its scientific manufacture. To ensure the highest possible degree of uniformity in the spinning solution and in the finished yarn, the various lots are blended together. Each huge blending tank is equipped with positive stirring blades that thoroughly mix the solution. At this point, the desired degree of luster in the finished yarn is also permanently fixed. If brilliance is wanted, the blended solution is used without further treatment. The addition of a special pigment or certain types of oil changes the solution so that the yarn it produces will be dull in appearance. The amount of delusterant added determines the final degree of dullness in the finished yarn. After blending, the spinning solution is allowed to ripen for an exact period of time to bring it to just the right condition for spinning. Unless it is properly aged, the yarn it produces will suffer in quality. So, during its stay in the aging tanks, the solution is regularly tested and checked. In precision-built presses, all foreign matter is completely removed by thorough filtering, not once, but again and again. Throughout every stage of manufacture, the purity of the spinning solution is constantly safeguarded. Each piece of equipment is constructed of metals specially selected to resist corrosion and contamination of the products being handled. The pipelines, valves, tanks, mixers, and other machines are designed and built to make the purest and finest spinning solution that science can produce. The only kind of spinning solution that measures up to DuPont's high, rigid specifications before it is approved for spinning into top-quality rayon yarns. The actual spinning of the solution is one of the most fascinating operations in all industry. We saw previously how a thin stream of the solution changes to a coarse strand of crude rayon when dropped into a hardening bath. But the crude rayon formed in this way is entirely unsuited for making cloth, as can be readily seen by comparing it with true rayon yarn. To make this yarn requires a specially designed, precision-built apparatus that is an outstanding example of modern machinery. The liquid passes through still one more filter before it emerges from minute openings in a tiny nozzle called a spinneret. How fine are these openings? Well, generally they range in size from 5/1000ths to 2/1000ths of an inch, the thickness of a human hair. Each hole forms an individual filament, and there may be any number, up to 400 or more of them, in a single thimble-like spinneret. Notice how the liquid solution coagulates when the spinneret is lowered into the spinning bath. An expert hand skillfully leads the yarn through a series of guides up and around a rotating glass wheel, then down through a funnel into a whirling pot which collects it. Each thread-like filament forms immediately as the spinning solution leaves the holes in the spinneret. The speed of the glass wheel largely determines the thickness of the yarn, although this characteristic also depends upon the size and number of the spinneret holes and the amount of spinning solution forced through them per minute. The collecting pot rotates at a very high speed, from 6 to 10,000 revolutions per minute. The rotation twists the filaments together, and the yarn is distributed alternately from top to bottom, so that it will lie properly against the wall of the pot to form a symmetrical cake. When removed from the pot, the cake of rayon consists of about 29% yarn by weight and 71% spinning bath liquid, which must be removed. At predetermined intervals, a cake of fine quality yarn is removed from each one of hundreds of spinning machines. In other plants, DuPont acetate rayon is spun by yet another method. The spinning solution, made from cellulose acetate by a different chemical process, known as the cellulose acetate process, is forced through tiny holes in a spinneret located about 15 feet above the level of the floor. When the solution passes through a column of warm air, one ingredient, acetone, evaporates, and the liquid solidifies to form slender filaments of rayon. By the time they reach the bottom of the warm air column, the filaments are perfectly dry. Here they are collected and guided out of the column to a device that winds the yarn on bobbins. The acetate rayon yarn, as it comes from the spinning machine, is a finished product. After twisting, it is ready for weaving or knitting into fine fabrics. Each bobbin is numbered for easy positive identification, so that every bit of yarn can be traced back to the machine that made it. All DuPont viscose process rayon is also carefully marked for reference before passing on through the finishing operations. Repeated thorough washing with pure warm water gradually softens and cleanses the yarn and gives it a smooth, pleasant feel. Much of the moisture is removed in a specially designed machine called a centrifugal extractor. Each cake is placed in an individual chamber which spins like a top at extremely high speed, throwing off water without harming the yarn's fine texture and construction. Final drying is accomplished in automatic tunnel ovens through which the yarn travels on conveyors. An exact degree of heat is maintained so that the yarn is dried gently and slowly. Now the yarn is ready for winding into the form desired by the fabric manufacturer. The bobbins are so designed that at each stage of the processing, strain is eliminated. This permits proper tension in twisting, coning, tubing, and skeining. From raw material to finished product, all DuPont rayon, whether made by the viscose process or the cellulose acetate process, is continually checked by a rigid testing routine. A continuous check on winding tension is made by periodically testing the tension of the running yarn. Specimen cones are regularly picked at random and rewound on a special machine that permits thorough inspection of the continuous yarns. A highly trained operator expertly examines the rayon as it passes in front of a black background that easily shows up any imperfections. Still other precision-built testing appliances make sure that the physical qualities of samples of every lot measure up to DuPont's high standards. Testing for yardage is accurately accomplished by a winding reel that turns at an exact degree of speed and measures the yarn precisely. Measured specimens of known length are then weighed on a sensitive gram scale to ensure the uniformity of the yarn. The amount of stretch or elongation of any textile material, as well as its tensile strength, are both of considerable importance because they affect the serviceability and wear of the fabrics made from it. This testing device precisely records the amount of twist per inch in any given specimen of yarn. The construction of practically every type of fabric greatly depends on how the yarn is twisted, so uniform twisting is highly important. Inspection of the yarn as it passes over a strong light within a dark room is still another DuPont control. By the expert eyes of skilled operators, any imperfection is immediately detected. Nothing but perfection gets by. But with this organization, careful surface inspection isn't enough by any means. Thorough microscopic examination tells the additional story of what's beneath the surface of the yarn. Cross-sections of samples from every lot produced are prepared by making tiny wax candles with a strip of yarn forming the wick in the center. The candle is then accurately cut into paper-thin slices, each of which contains a tiny cross-section of yarn for its core. When a slice is placed in a powerful microscope and the focus properly adjusted, the structure of each tiny filament is plainly revealed. To the untrained eye, such a picture means nothing. But to the DuPont expert, the size, shape, and arrangement of every fiber tell a definite story about the quality of the yarn being tested. Notice the difference between lustrous rayon and dull rayon as revealed by the microscope. The tiny specks of pigment in the sample on the right are embedded within each individual fiber, a permanent part of its basic structure. By scientific preparation and analysis of photomicrographs of specimens of yarn from every lot produced, the quality of the yarn is constantly safeguarded. Even when it has passed every other test, all DuPont rayon is carefully checked again before shipping. To you, this skein inspection may appear hurried and haphazard. But with these girls, years of training in knowing just what to look for have made hand and eye supersensitive to any possible defect. No single cone, skein, or tube leaves any plant without this final thorough checkup. From beginning to end, one hard and fast policy dictates and controls the outcome of every operation. Test and check, check and test, every step of the way. From the raw materials to the finished products, nothing is taken for granted. The result of each process is scientifically analyzed by accurate, fact-finding equipment in the hands of experienced, capable technicians. It takes plenty of time, skill, painstaking care, and effort to follow such a procedure in large-scale production. But that's the only way fine rayon is made. Yarns that make possible fabrics that lend new beauty and attractiveness to clothing and home furnishings. Countless articles of distinction to be found in fine shops and department stores from coast to coast. Smart dresses for every occasion, for woman, miss, or child, made of every conceivable type of material. For lingerie and negligees, there are satins, French crepes, flat crepes, taffetas, and knitted fabrics of every type. Fine menswear, too, gains variety and good looks through fabrics made of DuPont rayon yarns. Underwear, ties, sweaters, shirts, pajamas, hose, slacks, and tropical suitings for sportswear. Leading curtain departments everywhere feature rayon marquisettes, voils, ninons, and plain and novelty weaves. In draperies and bedspreads, rich brocades, brocatelles, jacquards, reps, twills, moirés, satins, damasks, and plain weaves. And for fine furniture, DuPont rayons provide outstanding upholstery fabrics. For 1,001 essential articles of daily use, DuPont rayon yarns ensure beauty and long life. Backed by the symbol of rayon quality, pure assurance that the yarns used are made to the highest standards of quality, precision, and honest, careful craftsmanship. Rayon yarns that take a merited place beside every other important development that has added beauty, luxury, ease, and comfort to our daily lives. Rayon yarns by DuPont.
Another kind of problem, and it looks like a very interesting one. Mary Jones is dialing up for what appears to be a heavy date, and if it's okay, we'll butt in for a few minutes and see what's going on. Well, what's this? Checking up? Working from diagrams? Following instructions? Absolutely. Scientific art of beauty. The latest from Loveliness Laboratories. Research to the rescue, helping Mary emphasize all the nice things in her very nice face, showing her how to minimize certain features, how to accent others. Lady, science has done all right by you. You sure look swell. Uh-oh, now she's gone and ruined everything. But beauty science could have helped her here, too. Let's go to beauty headquarters. Yes, Hollywood. And meet famous Paramount makeup man Eddie Sands, who thinks that glasses like hairdos can flatter the features. That just like eyebrow and lip lines, the lines of one's glasses can bring out good points, make bad points inconspicuous. When an actress's role calls for specs, it's just part of the normal makeup problem to Eddie, and the way he's solved this problem can be of tremendous value to the 10 million American women outside of Hollywood who have to wear glasses, not to play in pictures, but because of eyesight. Eddie's drawings give you the lowdown based on two fundamental types of faces, the round face and the long face. First, the hair. High and close for the round face, but low and wide for the long face. Lipstick next. Applied as much up and down as possible on the round face, but the long face needs horizontal lines like this. Now for the eyeglasses. For the round face, an arched bridge and a dropped lower curve to help correct that circular appearance. The long face needs just the opposite, an almost flattened upper edge and lenses with wide, shallow curves. Now, if you don't believe that these added lines are effective, watch closely while we switch hairdos, lip shape, and eyeglasses from one face to another. As you see them now, they're okay, but wait. There, the shape of the face is the same, but how differently it looks with wrong makeup and glasses. Let's put everything back. There, much better, in fact, perfect. Now let's visit a factory where they make optical glass and see just how modern manufacturing technique makes possible lenses that not only aid eyesight, but appearance. Here's the beginning of a long, intricate procedure, carefully mixing the various ingredients from which fine, modern optical glass is produced. Ingredients like silica, barium, lead, lime are rotated in drums like these until the proper proportions are thoroughly blended. Furnaces in an optical glass factory have to be just the right heat, and they have to be kept at just the right heat as the various basic ingredients become molten. That's why temperature readings are taken frequently with delicate pyrometers. And after 24 hours of cooking and stirring, a miracle occurs. The contents of the special clay pots are now liquid glass, white hot, 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit. And now comes one of the most fascinating operations in the making of optical glass, pouring. Right before your eyes, as the roller passes over it, liquid becomes solid. A hot molten mass on one side becomes a hot solid sheet on the other. A sheet of exactly the right thickness for additional processing. See it change color, going from white hot to red hot, and that's the signal for it to be pushed into the annealing ovens, where it will be cooled gradually to room temperature at which it can be safely handled. Much later now and much cooler now. Also a few cracks, but they don't hurt. Yes, the sheet of glass is ready for cutting into squares, but not every square is used. As the cutter cuts, he's also looking for defects. He assorts and discards, as does everyone who works with the glass from now on. Actually, only about 25% of the original pouring finds its way into finished spectacles. Now, reheated and softened, the squares are shaped into approximate lens forms. First, roughly in an oven, then more exactly shaped in a molding press. They're not squares any longer, and they're not called squares now, they're called blanks. A typical inspection, and there are as many as 45 different inspections throughout manufacturing. Then getting ready for grinding. This black liquid is pitch. It's poured into a heavy form, and when the surplus is removed, a coating of it remains. Into this, the preheated blanks are carefully placed. The pitch holds them firmly in position, whether on the bowl or on this drum, each symbolic of the countless forms used in the delicate grinding process. Hundreds of ingenious machines grinding millions of highly complicated basic lens prescriptions. A series of operations requiring the utmost accuracy and precision. Then more machines and polishing now until the blanks become as clear as the finest crystal. A bath in a special cleansing solution, and when they emerge from the suds, their official name has changed from blanks to lenses. Yes, they're almost ready for frames. But not quite. Centers of vision have to be carefully marked on each lens, and the proper axis must be determined. And more in the endless round of inspections. Experts checking on correct curvature, optical centers, and at the same time looking carefully for imperfections. Then the manufacturing process is over. The lens is ready for your specialist and his final grinding to your own prescription and face requirements. The basic shaping of the lens is done by various cutting devices. The edging is done on an abrasive wheel. Yes, the fundamental round lens can be fashioned into any one of 300 shapes to help the appearance as well as eyesight, which brings us back to Mary Jones. Still don't like your old specs, Mary? Neither do we. Take them off. They're not right for your face. But these are a set of 3, for just as a woman varies her wardrobe for different occasions, so can she find exciting variations in her glasses. These for formal wear. These for sports, same lens but tinted. And these for informal day wear, fitting right into the pretty picture that's Mary's face. Yes, science has entered every field of beauty today. No matter what the problem or what type of face we have, advice is available to us. So that in a highly competitive world where appearance counts for so much, each of us can always look his best.
Well, here we are back in a cave on the banks of the Dordogne River in France, thousands of years ago. And there's plenty of hair, as you can see, on the gentleman, but no hat and no hairdo to speak of. That hair is really interfering with his business. Nearby, the cave woman, his wife, is grilling a fish over an open fire. Now, the caveman is very plainly bothered by that hair that is growing so plentifully on his head in all directions. Suddenly he looks over toward the fireplace and he sees the surviving backbone of a fish that has been eaten. And it gives him an idea. Now, I don't say that we have proof that this happened, but it could have happened, and some such original discovery must have been made. Now, see what he does with the backbone of that fish. Puts up his hair as best he can and uses the backbone or part of it as a side comb to hold it in place. Let's imagine at least that that was the first hairdo. Now we slip forward a few thousand years to the time of the Babylonians in the Near East. See what kind of hairdos they had. Well, they not only curled their hair, but they curled their beards, too. It was a religious rite with them. Now we go over to the land of the Egyptians, about 2,500 years B.C., and notice a change. They shaved their heads completely, and they shaved their beards, too. But they wore an artificial beard made out of wood or horn or some such material. And the women, too, shaved their heads and wore wigs. Now, of course, we're talking about the aristocracy, the noble people and the rulers of those days, not the poor people. And here's an Egyptian woman with the kind of imitation hair or wig that was worn by the high-born ladies of those days. Another thing about the Egyptian women of those days was that the higher the headdress they wore, the more noble their blood was supposed to be. So you can see there was quite some competition among the ladies in a vertical way. Really getting high in some of these. Another peculiar thing was that when the princesses or queens acted in an official way, they too wore an imitation beard on their chins. Now we're coming forward to the Grecian days. And of course, we know all about these from drawings and paintings of the old days and written descriptions. And many of these pieces, by the way, are actual survivals of those periods and have been preserved in antique shops and in museums. This is the Greek style of hairdo. Of course, at all ages, a scarf was often used as a covering for the hair, with or without a hat on top of that. Now we're coming forward to the Roman days. There is a Roman painting, and a peculiar place for it. It's on the bald sconce of a Roman. And here we have one of the Roman ladies of the court of Augustus Caesar, and this is the kind of wig